Hi, it's Margaret Maloney, and welcome to the Death Dhamma podcast. I'm a Buddhist practitioner out here in the world, having experienced the loss of my loved ones and knowing how much my Buddhist practice helped me on my grief journey. And now, together we have this safe space to discuss death, dying, grief, and the Buddhist teachings that help us really understand attachment, impermanence, being compassionate, being death ready, and what it means to live a life so that we can have a peaceful death. Yep, it's a big topic, and we're going to take it on together. Let's go. Welcome back, friends and fans of the Death Dhamma podcast. And speaking of welcome back, today we welcome back Reverend Jessica Sharp, founder of the Joyful Death Institute. They were with us in season 4, discussing the second noble truth, the truth of suffering, and definitely they were helping us emphasize the importance of acknowledging and sitting with suffering as opposed to trying to intellectualize it, which is a thing I used to do, and teaching us how to find joy around death and the dying process. So today they are going to help us learn how to deal with, discuss death with family and friends, with maybe an emphasis on the time of year because of during the holiday season and during the winter season, it does seem that we have this combination of celebrations and deaths, but then remember that Reverend Jessica has taught us that we can have death with joy, so we can have both. Let's go ahead and get going, and welcome back. And if you would like to add more about your background, this would be a great time to do it. Welcome, Reverend Jessica.
Hi, Margaret. Thank you so much for having me again. It's a joy for me to be back, and I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to continue the conversation and to see what we can unearth and share and shed light on together, because I just feel more validated that it's so important for us to talk about this work, to share about this work, and openly with other people as well. And that's really also why I'm here today, is to really just help open that up a little bit more for the people in our life who we come into contact with to feel a little bit more permission to speak openly and comfortably about death and begin to put together what I call get your death ducks in a row. You got to get because when we have our death ducks in a row, which is like our legal paperwork, how we want our body disposed of, how we want our memorial, those kinds of things. When we have those death ducks in a row, it's a gift for ourselves. Right. It's a gift for our family members. And so often, because of family dynamics, it can be hard to even just bring up the topic. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to touch on this today and see what we can uncover together in this exploration for ourselves and for other people in our communities and listeners.
That is awesome. Thank you. When you say death ducks, I picture like little lines of black ducks, because not like the cute little rubber duckies in the bathtub, although why can't they be, right? I picture little funereal ducks. I will say, a few things that are relevant to something I've gone through in life is that my parents did have their death ducks in a row. And you're right, it made it so much easier. And in terms of talking about it, which we'll go into, they were so patient because they pulled me aside and spoke to me about it so many times, because the first few times they talked to me, I was not receptive to the discussion. I wasn't ready. And then as far as the holiday part goes, I will just tell you that my family, I guess, were very efficient. And those who I've been closest to all passed away in November. So that's like my death month. And many of them within a week of Thanksgiving. And yet I still love Thanksgiving. So help us get started. What is one of the first things you want us to know, first step you want us to take, or, in however way you want to guide us through this?
Thanks for sharing that, Margaret. Yeah, I think it's such a gift that when our family members do take care of put their death ducks in a row, and it can be really painful when they aren't as well. I will share that most of the clients that I work with tend to be, they range from 20, 30 to 50, 60 years old. But my clients tend to be the beloved family member who is going to be responsible for taking care of everything and everyone through the process of the death of a family member. And so when I speak with my clients, there's oftentimes areas where there is a level of permission in the family to talk about something. So I'm going to use my own family, for example. I'm very lucky. Both of my parents are still alive. And both of my parents have felt comfortable discussing with me that they wanted a cremation. And my father's also said what he wants done with his ashes. And I also have become in more awareness and felt more empowered to talk about family dynamics with my parents. I was raised in a Mormon household. My mother is Korean. It's very patriarchal. I do have an older brother, and I have a younger sibling who is my sister, but she is transgender. So she was raised as a boy. And in my family pecking order, if and when my parents pass, if both of my siblings are still alive, they are the ones who are expected to be responsible, actually, for executing the wishes of my parents. And so I actually had this realization, and I've had to go back to my parents and say, thank you for telling me what, how you want to be celebrated, how you want to be handled when you pass away. And I also need to recognize and acknowledge that if and when that happens, if my siblings are also still alive, I will actually not have a say in the process as the woman of as the daughter of the family, especially because I have an estranged relationship with my eldest brother, who would be responsible. And we are in a no contact zone. He has no interest in anything I have to say, especially anything that might tell him how to do anything. It was a moment for me to be able to also, to receive those wishes from my parents, and then also be able to reflect back to them that I don't actually have any capacity to support their wishes, and that if they then wanted those wishes to actually come to fruition, that there needed to be a real plan that was communicated with my brother and my other siblings. I found that to be a very empowering process, and one that I wouldn't have gotten to or gotten through if it weren't for myself being in this work and myself having a support system of other people around me who could help me sort of be honest through that. And it's very hard for me to name my family dynamics in the family. Oftentimes the elephant in the room, I often feel punished for being the person who names the elephant in the room. So
sometimes you do get punished for,
yes,
speaking of permission, sometimes you do get
yes,
punished for pointing out the elephants.
yes, exactly. And so we, as family members, especially those who we know where those tender spots are that we don't, that are not to be spoken of. And so sometimes it can be hard for people because those tender spots can also be around death. In my recent coaching that I've developed on this, I have some guidance on talking about death with your family and your family members. The first one is to share, because we're all going to die.
Yes,
sometimes the
that's
easiest
it. There's no other way out.
we're all going to die. Sometimes the easiest and best place is to actually start with yourself.
Yeah.
So now I do this now with other people. I do this not only with my family members, but I also do this with people, with strangers. Instead of being like, hey, how do you want to die? Instead, I framed it in my own personal experience, which is, hey, I really want to be water cremated when I pass away. And I want that water to be spread on my favorite plants. And I want that water fertilizer that's created from my body to go to my friends. And then I want those bone cremations to go out in the ocean.
That's
So,
great.
yeah, so I'll open up the conversation with my wishes. And then I say, is this something that you've thought about? And then I ask with curiosity if there's a reflection that they want, if the question that they have, or if they've thought about this themselves and they want to share with me. And I have found this to be an extremely effective way of opening that door. And I recently had a client who her parents passed away, her sister has cancer, and she said, my parents didn't talk about what they wanted done with their bodies. And so now my mom's ashes are on my mantle. I don't know what to do with this. And it's actually a point of grief and pain. And she's like, now my sister's going to pass, but I don't know I don't even feel like I can ask her because her sister wants to survive the cancer. And I think that's the other thing that gets in the way oftentimes is people believe that if they talk about death or if they introduce it, then it somehow negates the desire to continue living, the desire to heal from the disease that's, causing the demise sooner. And
right.
so,
Like the whole, and the way I've heard it sometimes phrased is like people think like, don't do that because then you're going to not make me die, but you're going to bring death because they think there's like a law of attraction thing with death. And I mean, I think the only law of attraction thing with death is that death eventually is going to be attracted to all of us, right?
Yes, 100%. There is a common misbelief and
Yes.
fear that if we talk about death, we're actually going to cause it to be sooner. And so sometimes people will actually get hostile when bringing up death because,
Right. Why would you
they're not
talk
ready.
about that? Why would you do that? I'm sure you don't want that to happen. Don't make that happen.
Exactly, exactly. So if that's very present in the relationship or in the person that you're speaking with about death, sometimes it's better to also get the information without talking about death. And so this is the other guidance that I offer folks. So, there are things that we know we're going to want to do when it comes time to the memorial, time for the memorial.
Okay.
So common thing I'll say, let's start small and let's just talk to them about the things they love about in life. So what's their favorite color? What are their favorite
Oh,
flowers? What are
okay.
their favorite food?
Mm-hmm.
What's their favorite places in nature? And start there. You don't need to talk to them about death. You can also just talk to them about their favorite things in life. Asking them about their favorite color is also such a gem because most people don't usually know the answer unless you
Right.
ask. And now that gives you something when you're planning the memorial, when you're thinking about how to honor them, when you're thinking about how to celebrate them in a way that feels good. You have information that can help inform you on those decisions that's really going to be aligned with their life and their wishes without it having to be talking about death.
Okay. So if somebody isn't ready to talk to me about it and I don't know 100% what they want, at least would I understand things like favorite colors and flowers and foods and themes and way of being, then I can work either on my own or with siblings or family, however that's dynamic is set up to create something that would be like a party they would have enjoyed, like as if they were going to walk in the room and they'd be like, oh, there's pink roses.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, got it.
Exactly. And also, I say think of it as if, like, most of the time, I think people would probably plan their funeral similar to how they plan their birthdays.
I think
So,
that's and isn't that really, it's such a fair comparison, I think, because sometimes I think of death as reverse birth.
exactly, yes. And when we are born, we are guaranteed 2 days, our birthday and our death day. And
Hmm.
what's funny is every year passes by and our death day passes by and we won't know what it is. We won't experience that. It's our loved ones who will experience the commemoration of our death date.
That's true.
So they are intrinsically tied, right? And
Hmm.
I think the best memorials are the ones that really honor how they would want to be celebrated of life in life. And they do can and will show us those things and tell us those things through the celebration of the things that they love, that they're passionate about, and how they want to be celebrated on their birthdays. Now, sometimes too, people are weird about birthdays and things like that, but their close ones usually understand, where the heart's desires are in terms of being celebrated. And those are the questions that I recommend starting with. Additionally, I also recommend having these conversations, not when people are tired, not when they're drugged up on drugs, of because they're dealing with something, like a surgery or pain or whatever that might be, or like
Hmm.
steroids, whatever it's helping them survive, and not when they're hungry. So not when they're uncomfortable, not when they're tired. So, I used to, when I had difficult conversations with my business partners, or my, friends, I always say, okay, let's go to our favorite restaurant. We're going to
Yes.
go and then we're going to enjoy a really great meal. And then at the end of the meal, when we're feeling satisfied, we're feeling grounded, we're feeling connected, we've cleared the air and we're present, that's the time to
That's the
say,
time.
hey,
That's why it's a good idea to
yes,
cater meetings. Ah, uh-huh.
yes,
But I see your
exactly.
point, and I completely resonate with that because I try really hard to just keep to myself when I'm hungry, but don't ask me important questions when I'm hungry. No, I'm ugly. I'm ugly. At the best, I will be quiet. That's your best case scenario is I just won't talk to you
Yes,
because you don't want me.
exactly.
You don't want to
Exactly.
hear what could come out of this mouth if I'm really hungry.
Yes. So that's the best time for me. That's what I also tell people. That's the best time, or after you've gone on a long walk with someone, right? All those things, plus maybe also after a long walk or a time on a beach or someplace where people feel very naturally at peace and at ease, because that's when you're going to have the most receptivity. And then that's when you can ask, how do you want to be celebrated?
Hmm.
Not what do you want your funeral to be? Most
Yeah.
people don't want to talk about that. But people do want to talk about how they want to be celebrated. And so, really framing it in that and then letting people bring, because most people are going to have specific requests around specific things, but not requests around all things, not
Right. That
so
is such a nice
letting
way
them
to phrase
share.
it too. How do you want to be celebrated? Because now, when you said that, where I went was like as if, as if you're getting an award, as if you're saying, Margaret, we're having an award ceremony for you. And you are, it's just, I'm not there. We're awarding you for having lived and being part of our lives. And so we're having this ceremony and we're going to do it in a way that we know would have, made you proud, but you're not there.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's been the guidance that I've been offering to folks, and it seems to be going over well.
Mm-hmm. I can
I'm
see
still
why.
wait. I'm still waiting to hear back more reports, and time will certainly tell. But I have found that this has been a helpful direction for a lot of people. And then also, what I will say about that too is just even knowing that there's support out there for them for things like this. So as a death doula, I'm helping with just like a birth doula comes in when you know you're pregnant and you got to prepare for the baby to arrive, and then you got to go through the process of the baby arriving, and then you got to go through the process of integrating the baby into the family, into your life.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with death. Once you know death is, it's that time, you can bring in a doula who's going to help you prepare until it comes up, and then help you as the process going through, and then also help you integrate after they're no longer in their body. And I also think this is really important and really powerful for people who do work with death doulas, and that is also people who work closely with death and in death, who come from a spiritual leaning generally, will really help shed light on the fact that when our beloved people in our life pass, it is not that they leave us, it's that they leave their body.
Oh, but I'm human and I take this personally because they're not here for me anymore.
Yes, and you know there are too many undeniable examples of people in their life of spirits do coming and coming. My beloved dog who passed away still comes to me in my dreams. There many people still have their beloved family members come to their in their dreams, come in their meditations. Something that I as a psychic, I help people communicate with those who've passed on every day
Mhm.
in different ways,
Right.
including ancestors, so including people of their lineage who've been passed on for a very, very long time. And so for me, I'm used to sitting in a chair saying, okay, let's call in your ancestor grandma times 14. And she's with you every day. And whenever you eat pickles, she's the one that's cheering you on. And, you don't know her name, but you feel
Right.
her presence all the time. Every time you eat pickles, she's there with you. And so I'm able as a psychic medium to really also see, it's like so clear as day for me that the
Mhm.
shape that they take once they leave their body, yes, it does change because they're not in their body, but their spirit is still with us and is still accessible when we need them. And they are there when we need them. And oftentimes we just need to open ourselves to being aware that they are that they are here with us.
I have a question about that, and it's not exactly on track with what we're discussing, but because I really appreciate that someone like you can help with that. So I have active dreams, so I understand what you're saying. Like I have active dream visits, but a lot of people don't, and so your service is really helping connect people who haven't accessed to that capability. But there's something I always wonder. Is there a point at which, my grandmother times 14 is no longer going to be accessible to me?
So my understanding is that all of our ancestors are accessible to us at all times. And the
Okay.
only reason why we speak to some versus others is that we are in a karmic cycle that we are living out. And the ones who are with us actively on a more day-to-day basis are the
Mhm.
ones who are part of that karmic cycle. And that's why they're so intimate in our life, is
Okay.
because we are living out something that is a continuation of something in their life.
Okay.
So yes, and the relevance of the activity of the ancestors in our lives has directly to do with the karmic lessons that we have taken on when we entered our body, and that we are moving through as we move through life.
Thank you. I've always wondered that. And as you were speaking, I just thought, oh, this is my opportunity to ask this question. So even though I apologize, everyone, I was a little off track. Thank you so much for indulging me.
Well, we're talking about speaking with our beloved ones. And for me, it doesn't make a difference whether they're alive or they're past. I'm happy to help you talk to all of your beloveds, if they're
Right, because
in
for
body or not
you
anymore.
for you with that gift, it's you have access to speak to us in all our different forms. And so it's probably just like another different form entering the room, if I can say it that way.
Yes, and
Mhm.
I actually do host ceremonies where people come over to my home and we open up a portal, a psychic living room for our ancestors to come in, and
Mhm.
people directly connect with their ancestors to the degree that they can, and then I'm
Mhm.
able to use my abilities to provide much more detail as well. And with my goal is like, now you have their phone number, you can pick up, now you can pick up the phone and you can call them, and to be able to
Mhm.
more consciously connect. And it's been very rewarding because folks that I have worked with have said, for example, I worked with this woman and she was, oh, I don't experience much. And what came through was a group of ancestors who had just this fascinating story. They were a group of nomads who used to travel along the Silk Road, and they had domesticated giraffes
Oh,
in
wow.
order to carry their stuff.
Mhm.
And I was telling her about this. I was telling her about them. They were just an incredibly rambunctious, fun, kind of like carnival type crew. And I was telling her about all about their life. And then the next day she was walking down the sidewalk and there was a big giraffe with a saddle on it in the middle of the sidewalk.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, yes, okay, we're, something is happening here. And that's what I'm talking about. This is what we call synchronicity, is
Mhm.
where this ancestors and the spirits are coming through to help us move through these lessons that are continuations of the threads of life that they were a part of as well. So
Okay.
it's very rewarding to be able to help people. And so now she's able to feel more aware and connected. Okay, oh, when I see this is them coming through,
This
and I
is
can
them.
feel that. Yeah, I can really feel that, and I can witness it as them supporting me, them, the miracle of life, of the tremendous
Right.
support I do have, that I'm actually not alone. I am an ant standing on the shoulders of giants who came before me, and when they're dancing, I will jostle and I will know it's not me just sitting in an earthquake, it's me sitting on their shoulders, and that
Oh,
they
I
are
love that.
celebrating,
Yes.
so we can
Okay.
zoom out.
Now, does it make sense to, when somebody's getting ready to release someone that they love to death, going into death, do you share with them that the connection won't be broken? Is that something that most people find reassuring? Do you just not talk about that until later? Is that part of this process?
It depends on the type of relationship I have with them, and I think also how open people are or how
Okay.
afraid that they are of that loss.
Hmm.
I do offer education. So when we leave our body, when we die, there's this silver cord that I can psychically see that connects our astral body to our physical body. It's in the third chakra in the solar plexus. In Buddhist traditions, the monks practice unplugging themselves actually with this cord. That's actually one of the things that you learn in the monastery. And then that's also believed that once you're able to do that, that's a skill you carry forth in future lifetimes as well.
Oh, I
So
see.
it's, yeah, so there's a understanding in the monasteries that if you've had a past life in a monastery before where you learned this, at time of death, you will have the capacity to do this as well if you're conscious enough, sort of like present enough with it, and open enough to allow your soul to bring in those skills that you did develop in other lifetimes.
Okay.
What does happen is so what happens is when the astral body leaves the physical body, depend the people who are alive, the people who are close, when we are energetically connected with each other, we have these things called cords, energetic cords that connect us.
Yes.
And that's why oftentimes with people who are close, once they leave the body, the people close to them will feel it. They'll know oftentimes when they're connected, because it is almost like, if you think of like a string of Christmas lights, if
Mm-hmm.
one of the lights gets unplugged, it
Other
sends
lights
a
go out.
circuit. Yes, it sends a circuit. The
Yes,
circuit
it sends a
knows that
message. It sends a
something's been
message.
unplugged. Yeah, something's been
Absolutely.
unplugged. So that happens at the energy body level. And what is supportive at that time is to readjust, redo that wiring, right? To adjust that person, that you can, to no longer connect
Mhm.
with the body in that way and with that spirit in that way. So that's actually that's actually how I came into death work, was that psychic work. So psychic healing, psychic readings within 5 days of the heart stopping. Our primary thing that we're going in and doing is doing a life review, and we're updating all the contracts so that people are relating to them at a spirit level, spirit to spirit level, and no longer on a body to body level. So, and some people are available to hear it and talk about that and explore it, and some people aren't.
Right.
And honestly, generally also because, in the East, in India, and in Buddhist traditions, the understanding of reincarnation, the understanding of these death rituals of cleaning and disconnecting and allowing to move on, letting go, and while recognizing that we're still interconnected, that we're going to come back in just a different way, informs a lot of those rituals. And those are things that are not universally understood in the West. So
Yes.
I would also say that most of my work is often with people who have studied Vedic or Buddhist traditions and have that understanding. And I do work with people who don't have the understanding to help them understand that as well. So I seek to meet people where they are, recognizing that in some cultures that's just understood as something, and in other cultures there's skepticism, right? Like in the West, there's a lot of skepticism about reincarnation. And I joke that reincarnation is like electricity. You don't have to believe in electricity, but it's still going to shock you if you touch it.
That's beautiful.
You don't have to believe in reincarnation, but I see that it's still going to happen to you. So
there you go. Right. Whether you believe it or not. Well, and my hunch is that for the most part, someone who works with you is either, as you were saying, already from a tradition that honors and believes this, or is open. You might, I guess, occasionally get someone who's more closed off, but then I'm thinking, why would they seek you out unless a friend said, "Oh, I'm bringing my friend Reverend Jessica to help with this situation." Right.
That's exactly correct. Yeah.
That's what I would think. That's what I think. Okay. So let's recap. We have talking about our own, what we want when we're going to die as a way to break the ice into the discussion. And we have, talking about or learning about somebody's preferences. And we have talking about how I might want to be memorialized or remembered. We didn't even say it that way. How would it like to be celebrated? How would I like to be celebrated? And what else do we do? What else do we do to
and not having the conversation intention, having the conversation when everyone feels well rested, well fed,
That's
and
right.
peaceful.
That's right. Make sure, and this is true with any conflict or potentially difficult topic, right? It's like have it at the right time and in the right place. Okay. Definitely.
And we can often feel that, right? That's often that's not something that has a hard, fast rule. That's like your body will tell you, oh, this is a good, quiet, peaceful moment to bring it up. So
now, even in that, let's say I'm thinking this seems like a good, quiet, peaceful moment, and it could be, but somebody might still resist. Now what?
Oh, I thank you so much for asking that. I have another workshop that I'm teaching called Practicing Self-Compassion and Self-Forgiveness.
Oh.
Because ultimately, also at the end of the day, all we can control is ourselves, and barely even that sometimes, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. Especially again if I'm hungry.
Yeah. So that's, I teach this regular workshop, and that's something that I also focus a lot on with my clients. And that is, what are you doing every day to be in practice with yourself and to practice that self-compassion, practice that self-forgiveness? Because whether it's a difficult conversation about death or anything else, these are tools that will help you stay in your sense of peace, in your sense of, it was very hard for me to address with my parents that they're telling me their death wishes, but there's nothing I could do about it as long as my brother is alive, which is also a weird thing. It's not like I wish my brother were to die, but my capacity to even have that conversation came from a lot of practicing compassion for myself and forgiveness for myself before I was able to access that. So another thing that I talk about with my clients is a daily practice. If they can, 10 to 30 minutes. I have a few different prayers, mantras, exercises, things that they can do to just help and that metta, loving kindness, the four immeasurables, Ho'oponopono, Rain by Tara Brach. that these are all tools, taking the time to actually sit down and use these tools for ourselves, apply them in our life, not just for this situation, but for all situations, because that is going to happen. It is going to happen where we'll bring up something. We want a conversation to go a different way. We want something to go a different way. We are going to, grief is inevitable. The pain of it is inevitable, right?
Right.
But what we know is that we can provide the space we need for ourselves to move through that in compassion. And additionally, when we do the work of practicing self-compassion and self-forgiveness, that begins to open up ripples of compassion and forgiveness for other people. And oftentimes, only in that compassion and forgiveness for other people can something actually change.
I can remember there was a time early in my grief journey where one of my spiritual teachers was having me do Tonglen meditation, radiating compassion for others. And he would have me specifically thinking about other widows and what they were going through and how hard their lives were. And, and it was, first I thought it was a weird request, but then I understood because it takes you out of yourself and realizing, like, first of all, I'm not the only one. And second of all, in this difficult time, I might be in pretty good shape. And, also there are others who are going through this. And so you get that compassion for yourself and that compassion for others.
Yes, Tonglen is a great one. That's actually another one I also do in the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Tonglen is one of the most, if not the most powerful exercises that we can do in just practicing self-compassion and compassion for others. But when we're able to start with the self, that I think is what waters the flower to open up to the compassion for others.
Well, it's really true. What we're talking about and the ability to use these different approaches to help others, it really all begins with our own ability. My own ability to be able to talk to someone else about death, my own ability to care enough to ask them about their preferences. And so it's that reminder again, it begins within, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why it's also so important that we water and care for what's within as we move through this really difficult and rewarding journey. I think there's also depths of life that can only be accessed when we're able to squarely face death for ourselves, and that everything we love, we will lose.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard, for a lot of people, knowing that and turning away from that, they also turn away from life in a way that is actually more painful, but it's so normalized that they don't realize that that is what's happening. And sometimes that process of turning away and disassociating from it is actually rewarded in our culture and rewarded in our groups, because the people around us also don't want to deal with their pain and your pain. I think that's why it's also really important for us to have that support, have the group support, individual support, death doulas, therapists, spiritual leaders,
Mm-hmm.
whoever it is, that can say, there is space for your grief here. There is space for your pain here. I do not see you as broken or incomplete or wrong or shameful or any of these things that, for what you're going through or what you're experiencing. And oftentimes we really need that. I still need that. I still have my teachers and coaches and
Yes.
gurus and things that I still also need to go to that can help hold me, because we live in a culture that also really oftentimes incentivizes disassociation and denial and turning away from difficult and very difficult topics such as death, and also other things, difficult topics such as racism and white supremacy and war and,
Yes.
all sorts of things. And it's not really going to be until we can be with these things that we can actually begin to shift and make change and to heal the pain that we all collectively feel from these very sad and destructive ways that we've been together.
The things that happen to us in life. I appreciate you bringing up the support system, because I would, maybe that's another piece, if again the people we're working with allow, is to begin to talk to people about who will be your support system. Especially if you're working with someone who is going to be the surviving person, in that moment, because eventually we're all going to die, but in that scenario, then it is important for that person to be thinking of, who am I going to go to when this person is gone, especially when it's like a family member that you're very close to. You know, if you have a very close relationship with your parent, your partner, a sibling, and they're going to be gone, where will you turn? Where will you turn? And it's important to have that support. That could be another piece.
Yes. That
Yeah.
is absolutely another piece. And that's actually one of the emphasis in the workshops that I share is like there is support out there for you. Actually, so many people don't know. I actually there's multiple layers I think about support. One, knowing that there's support, believing that there is support out there for you. Two, asking for it. I myself have a very difficult times at time asking for help. So
Oh,
that
I'm horrible at that.
so that's also part of it. And then the third is receiving the help, which is also can be really challenging for me. But so we need to do those three things. And the other thing that's really important to understand about support is that we actually need to do the work of getting the support in place before we need it.
Right, right.
Yes.
If I live a very solitary life and then I go through something difficult, it will be harder for me to find support because first of all, no one knows I exist because I have a solitary life and I haven't built the relationships. And it doesn't mean I can't go places. I can definitely go. So in that case, I think I'm leaning more on professional services, but the personal relationships aren't there because nobody knows who I am.
Yes. So, some of my clients have family members who are dying from cancer. And so I'm like, hey, go to the hospital, go to the hospice, search in your local communities, family members dealing with family members dying of cancer. Like there are grief groups, there are support groups that are there, find out about them, ask about them, think about joining them. Because then when you're in the thick of it, you do want, like, you want to call someone who knows what you're going through and that can say, you're crying on the floor and you can't get up and you need to go do these. You need to walk your dog. Let me come over and walk your dog for you. I'm just going to come over and sit with you. But you had to have set that up. You had to have
Right.
made the effort to make that connection. And it's oftentimes, focusing on people who are going through the same thing that you're going through,
Mm-hmm.
dealing with the same disease is often very helpful. And that they're in your locality as well is also another way that's really helpful. Or if there's a specific way that you want to handle grief, like there are different grief storytelling or art groups that are also really great and online or in person, and getting involved in those, because those are the people that are like, yes, you just tell me you need the help and I'm going to show up for you because I know I'm going to need the help and I'm going to want you to show up for me.
Mm-hmm.
So getting that lined up ahead of time is crucial to actually allowing it to be easeful for you, allowing yourself to be supported. And for a lot of people, allowing yourself to be supported may actually be the most challenging part of witnessing a loved one go through deaths, because you're losing that support that you had. And if you don't recognize that there's still support available to you, and that there's small steps that you can take to get it, then I think a lot of people find themselves in a tremendous amount of suffering and grief without the support. And it doesn't have to be that way.
You're
It
right.
doesn't have to be that way.
You're
So I
right.
really stand in that vision for people that it doesn't have to be that way.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Now, is there something else you want to make sure that you teach us before we have to say goodbye?
Yes. Yes. So this is something that I've been bringing up in all of the spaces when I get a chance to talk about death. And as somebody who's working in the death world, what I'm really seeing is a transformative opportunity that a lot of people don't see and know about. And that is that to take the time with the dead body. People, death was removed from the house after the Civil War. Death was removed to the house into the funeral system.
Okay.
And we have now gone generations of people. I did not see death. I saw my grandparents dying, and then I saw them embalmed at the funeral home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of us, that's our experience. And so oftentimes when people die at home, or even if they die in a facility, the body just goes. And actually, what I am hearing from people and what I'm recommending to people is that window of time. There's a window of time after they have died and the body hasn't gone to the funeral home yet. That has been the most healing time I have heard from most people in relating
Interesting.
to the ones who have loved it, because there is something so magical and intimate. I tell them, take the time, bring flowers, burn some sage, comb their hair. But don't let some stranger bathe them and put them in their last clothes. If you love them, you do that. Like not only is it available for you to do it, not only it will be incredibly healing for you to do it. And I think actually that a lot of people's grief comes from not really being able to say goodbye in a way that feels complete to them. And the people who take the time with the dead body to prepare it and to sit with it and to share whatever they didn't get off their chest with that person while they're still alive, because their spirit is still there. And people feel that now is the time. Now is this window of time where I can really, truly allow myself to say and get off my chest and what I couldn't have said to you when you were alive, but that can be received now. And yeah, I'm really encouraging people to consider to take that time after the body has died. I tell them, call the funeral, be in contact with the care team. Once the body passes, ask them, how long can I have with this body? How long can we have to do a ceremony, to do our own care of this body before we have to hand it off? Because it is a real timeline, right? The body is decomposing. So that's real.
Well, I mean, that is true. And especially in Western culture, we don't traditionally leave bodies in a house for too long. And there might even, I've never looked this up, but there might even be, I don't know, health department guidelines or something, but I don't know what they're going to do to me. So I see your point is like to be in touch with the team and say, we have a tradition of bathing the body in our family. So can you give us some time? That does seem very important to express it that way, definitely. So that there's an understanding, so that there doesn't need to become like an investigation as to, why didn't you call us when this person died?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Be in contact with your care team, but most people don't even know. It doesn't even occur to them that they could take that time and space to really complete with that person.
Right.
And I am hearing from folks that I'm working with that the folks who do that have a completely transformed relationship with those who have passed away that feels much more grounded and much more healed and much more reconciled. In a way that they don't think they could have accessed if it weren't for having had that opportunity. So I just really strongly advocate to bring awareness to that for people, to offer them that opportunity that they may not know about.
That is beautiful. Thank you. I think this is really helpful. I think I think you've found for us some really important and achievable, I'll say, steps for how to approach this and how to speak to people and what to do when people aren't ready for the conversation and how to help ourselves as we navigate the death of others. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Margaret. I really appreciate the opportunity to connect again and share these little nuggets of wisdom that I'm learning along the way. And just grateful also for the audience and people who are opening their hearts and minds to allow for a transformative, joyful, and healing experience with death.
It's Joyful Death Institute. Remind me.
It's joyfuldeath.institute.
Thank you. I've got books for you, starting with Carpooling with Death, How Living with Death Will Make You Stronger, Wiser, and Fearless. The book that got me going and helped me to discuss going through the death of my loved ones, followed by Sitting with Death, Buddhist insights to help you face your fears and live a peaceful life, based on season 1 of the Death Dhamma podcast. And just recently, Enlightenment Unleashed, how your pet can lead you to spiritual transformation, because during our lifetime, we may see the rising and ceasing of many pets, and we love them like they are our family. Find these on Amazon.com or come see me at MargaretMaloney.com. You've been listening to the Death Dhamma podcast with your host, Margaret Maloney. Thank you so much for being here. Come find me on MargaretMaloney.com, MargaretMeloni.com. And until we meet again, may you be well, may you be happy, may you be at ease, and may you be free from suffering. Bye for now.